individual question and 1 minute 30 seconds opportunity to respond as well. Candidates may also be challenged by follow-up questions where necessary. And we begin tonight with Mike Cupboard, Independent. Mike, if elected to the Dáil, are there any independents or political groups you would refuse to work with? For example, Michael Lowry's group of independents, or would you work with anyone if it meant the influence or government support for your policies?
I think, John, if you start off this debate by saying I won't work with X, Y or Z, you're off to a bad start. I think I'm very clear. I want to work for Galway. I want to deliver for Galway. And who wants to work with me? I don't care. If they're putting their shoulder to the wheel to give fair investment to the west coast of Ireland, to the west coast to Galway City and Galway County, I'll work with them. And that goes for government parties, that goes for opposition parties, that goes for independent groups as well.
So you go into government and under a whip system with government?
I'm not going into government. I'm there, independent voice, independent thinking, independent acting. But if the government come up with a policy and idea that benefits Galway, I'll support it. Equally, if the opposition come up with an idea that benefits Galway, I'll support that too. Again, it's about giving a voice to people without being tied to a whip system. That's my point, John. I've done it for 12 years on Galway City Council.
Yeah, but the numbers in the Dáil means nothing.
But listen, you can give an opinion on things. And again, I've done it at a local level. I've worked with every party and none. I've never not been in a coalition in Galway City Council. I've worked with every single party and none, which shows I'm open to work with anybody. Whether they're left or right, I don't care. People get this label, you're left or you're right. If they want to work for Galway, I'm available to work, whether they're independent or party driven.
But you're just not going to make the difference. The numbers stack up in favour of government, so why should people vote for you when you might support government, you might not? Would it not send a stronger message if they vote for opposition?
Not necessarily, because if you vote for a party colleague, a party member, they may have to be toeing the party line. Where they may want to speak up about Galway and speak up for the West Coast, they may not be allowed to speak up. They may have to toe the line. I don't have a line to toe. I will speak up for the people of Galway, which is the job I give to do.
All right, Mike Cupboard, Independent, thank you for that. Moving on now to Orla Nugent of Aintree. The Irish people voted decisively to repeal the 8th Amendment. So can you tell voters clearly tonight, would Aintree seek to roll back on abortion access, including the current 3-day waiting period if given political power? Would you make our abortion laws more conservative if in power?
Well, 85% of people that undertake an abortion is for socio and economic reasons. So we want a better place to have a baby. So there's dozens of mothers that are actually giving birth who are homeless.
The question is, will you make it more conservative or liberal if you were in government?
Well, in relation to, like, say, children with Down syndrome, 90% are not making it to term. So in that respect, yes.
Would you ban abortion outright if in government?
We have to respect the referendum, but we do in relation to the 3-day wait. We wanted to keep that in place. We think it's very important. 10,000 women that went to the first consultation over the space of the last few years did not come back for the second one. So that means about 10,000 children could be in the arms of their...
You wouldn't ban abortion outright if you were
Well, we are a pro-life party.
So you would ban abortion in its totality if you were in government? Because it's government policy.
We have to respect it as it is. But we do, in relation to 90% of Down syndrome babies being, going through or aborted at the minute, and we do want to value everyone, and we think they should be treated equally and have a right to life.
All right, Orla Nugent of Aintree, thank you for that contribution. We're moving on now to Cillian Kane of Fianna Fáil. Cillian, Bertie Ahern's recent comments about immigration have caused major controversy and forced Micheál Martin to publicly distance Fianna Fáil from them. So do you agree with Bertie Ahern's remarks or not? And does Fianna Fáil still know what exactly stands for on immigration?
Short answer on the first part, no, I don't agree with the sentiment that he expressed. I think that it wasn't helpful. I think anybody who comes out with something like that, particularly somebody in a position of influence or who has a strong voice, should know better.
What was wrong with it?
I think the reality is we have to acknowledge the positive contribution of immigration in this country. Look at every hospital, look at the hospitality sector. But the reality is the work that's being done there at the moment now is to create a firm and fair system that's fast-tracked to ensure that when you look at international protection, what Minister O'Callaghan has done, it's to help people engage in a fair and firm system, rules-based, that genuine asylum seekers are treated with the appropriate care that's needed, they're treated properly.
He wants it more hardline. He's on record as saying that the last few days.
Sorry?
Do you agree with that? He wants it more hardline, the immigration laws.
Well, I think the reality is we need genuine economic migrants still need to come into this country. They have a positive role to play.
What about asylum seekers?
But the point is, when you look at the percentage in terms of asylum seekers that are refused asylum, we have to ensure that throughput is done properly, and we ensure that the genuine asylum seekers...
A lot of them win appeals though.
the reality is, and that's the point, there will still be an appeals process there, and it ensures that the people who do and are a genuine asylum seeker are treated with the utmost fairness.
Are government dog whistling on it?
No, I don't believe so. I don't believe so.
Cillian Kane of Fianna Fáil, thank you for that contribution. On now to Thomas Welby, Independent. Thomas, if elected to the Dáil, would you support a Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael-led government in exchange for local deals and influence, or are you asking voters to elect you as an independent while leaving the door open to propping up the very establishment parties that many people are frustrated with?
Well, I mean, whoever is going to be elected as the TD for Galway West has to work for Galway West. And I'm 22 years, I've experience in relation to it, and I will be solely focused on getting things done for Galway West.
So you'd be open to joining the Lowry group, would you?
Refer to John, whoever is elected, if I was elected tomorrow, if I'm elected tomorrow, I have to join a group. I'm more focused on getting elected at the moment than even worrying about a group. So what you have to do...
No to it, though. You haven't said no
I haven't said yes either, John. I mean, I have a lot of friends. I have a lot of friends in relation to Michael Healy-Ray nominated me for the Shannon, as did Michael Lowry. So, I mean, I have various political friends.
Be a good fit for you. Be a good fit.
Well, John, I'm focused on getting elected first. That's my main focus. And then I have to see who do I get, if I was to be there, and who I would be involved with. Because you have to get there for speaking rights. But that doesn't mean that, you can still lobby in relation to getting additional investment for Galway, like the hospital, like roads. In relation
you would
to
take
that.
A cabinet seat or a junior ministry?
Well, John,
like that. There's one available after Michael Healy-Ray, actually. Funny enough.
To be honest with you, that's a bit of a silly question now, because
is it?
The government is formed. Just because one person might be elected in Galway West, they're not going to look back at...
When there's rotating teachers...
John, please, that's not how the system works. The government is formed. This will be an additional seat. It'll either be a party person or an independent. If I'm an independent, I'll work for Galway West.
All right, Thomas Welby, Independent, thanks for that. Moving on now to Helen Ogbu of Labour. Helen, your party MEP, Aidan O'Riordan, said that farming matters got too much coverage on issues like Board Bia, also the protests, over things that really matter to the electorate, like housing, cost living. Do you agree with those sentiments?
Do you want to come back with a question, please?
Yeah, do you agree with his sentiments?
Do you want to, I just need you to rephrase the question.
Okay. Do you believe that farming matters have gotten too much coverage in the media over issues like housing and cost of living?
Well, the truth is that farming issues are issues that affect Galway West. Housing, most of the issues coming up are around housing, cost of living, and transport, and as well as health issues, mental health. But farming is a big issue because it's one of the lifelines in rural Galway. And I believe that it's an important issue, and my MEP has actually represented the issues that affect farmers in Brussels. So he would be in support of farmers, and he has actually voted against the Mercosur deal as well, so which is something that it's worth talking about, because that means he's in support of farmers.
But on things like Board Bia and on the fuel protests, he said they're getting way too much coverage as opposed to other issues like housing and cost of living. Do you agree with that?
Well, I think the truth is the government delayed in responding to that issue, the protest. If the government had responded to that issue, which was why people protested, people were tired and people were complaining and protesting about the cost of living. So every issue is important, both housing, cost of living, transport. It's what affects the people of Galway West.
Okay, Helen Ogbu of Labour, thank you for that contribution. On now to AJ Cahill of the Irish People Party. Your party has no presence or influence in the Dáil, so are you genuinely offering a workable solution for people here in Galway West, or simply trying to turn public anger and frustration into political attention?
No. So what we're about here in this election is three things. One is moving the Overton window on conversation, and we've been doing that for a number of years. In other words, what we're saying now is now being said by the likes of Bertie Ahern. It's been spoken.
He's since clarified his remarks.
Sorry?
He has since clarified his remarks.
Well, he didn't back down from them either. But other people are saying, well, what people couldn't have a conversation around immigration before. So that's the first thing. The second thing is this, is that around housing, there's a campaign that needs to happen around housing, but it cannot happen unless immigration is addressed.
Are you going to scapegoat asylum seekers and migrants?
No, This problem is not caused by immigrants. This problem is housing problem is government created. All the stuff we talk about is government created. Asylum seekers.
So we can still have asylum seekers, and we can do both. We can fix the housing, and we can also take in asylum seekers.
Not at the rate we're doing right now, and not the immigrants, the amount of them, because we're changing the.
How do you know? Are you an expert in that?
Well, it's the numbers. So.
What numbers?
The numbers of people coming in. How can you solve a housing problem when you bring in 900,000 people?
But you also need workers to build said houses as well, which we don't. We have a shortfall of 80,000.
We were well able to build the houses before with no problems.
Okay, AJ Cahill of the Irish People Party, thank you for that. On now to Niall Murphy of the Green Party. Niall, many rural Galway voters believe Green Party policies have made life more expensive while lecturing people on how they should live. So how exactly is a family in Connemara supposed to manage without a car when public transport simply doesn't exist for a lot of them?
Yeah, I totally accept public transport isn't up to scratch, and that's what the Green Party have been attempting to fix that. If you look back at 2023, there was about 100 new bus routes introduced. Most of them were rural link buses, so rural transport is hugely improved under the Greens. Now, in contrast to 2023, we're now in 2026. No new bus routes will be introduced in 2026. So nobody is now making any attempt to provide public transport rurally. Now, given that, it's still obviously absolutely necessary to have cars in some rural areas. And so we need public transport to solve our city. The congestion problem in the middle of Galway is not a rural problem. We will solve congestion in Galway by putting in public transport, because a city needs public transport, and a city is where you have congestion. So that's what you're mostly trying to solve.
Do you hear the anger of rural people who say things like the carbon tax are an unfair penalty then, would they have simply no alternative?
Yeah, and the carbon tax is an interesting one. And I mean, and there's other candidates here who will be saying we should completely get rid of the carbon tax. But anyone who's claiming you should get rid of a tax without saying what tax you would use to replace it, or saying what services you would remove, then that's just an empty promise. That's just buying votes. So the carbon tax, if you're saying get rid of the carbon tax, what you're actually saying is get rid of the acre scheme that funds farmers. So you're going to take small farmers and take money away from them if you get rid of the carbon tax. If you get rid of the carbon tax, you're getting rid of the warmer home scheme, which retrofits at no cost to the homeowner, retrofits homes. 32,000 families have received those homes retrofits. And that, taking that away is what you're doing when you say remove the carbon tax.
All right, Niall Murphy of the Green Party, thank you. On now to Mark Lohan of Sinn Féin. Awarcus Morcount Gaeltachta E Galliv here, Mariala Sinn Cén Fánach Féidir let you sport the Ian of Galifa Trí Gaelga. Why did your party leader say you can debate in Irish and you can't?
Look, John, tá gragum jar changach nach will me lífa, but tá sé je carta ní lowered kibe level at time is the Céile go fédal in Ian Yartu. We speak our language at the level we're at, and while I'm not a native speaker, I have an ability to speak our language, my cúpla focal, and I use them all the time. My graw for the language and Sinn Féin's policy for the language is strong, and I don't think it's questioned by anyone else.
Was there miscommunication between yourself and Mary Lou MacDonald? What happened there?
Yeah, well, look, when I'm across the Gaeltacht, John, people there are talking to me about their need for housing, for infrastructure, for the need for services there, not whether my fluency is of whatever level or not.
It has caused a split in your party, though, in Galway West, hasn't it?
No, it has not.
Reported on the media that it did.
There's been some discussion, but what people are saying to me is this government, Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, have failed the people of the Gaeltacht. They were promised a housing planning statement for the Gaeltacht that has not come. We put forward a 10-point plan for the Gaeltacht. And for example, some of those initiatives would be to return the Gaeltacht grant. Sean talked about himself being a minister during Brexit and COVID. He was also the minister during austerity and housing disaster. And it was during that austerity that the Gaeltacht housing grant was removed. That ought to be brought back. And we have other innovative ideas.
Have you financed that? Have you financed that? Have you?
Yeah, that has costed. Our alternative budget has costed, John, in every election.
How much?
Well, look, it's like part of the 9 billion that's there in reserve at the moment. Well, there's 9 billion right there in reserve at the moment, John, that could be used for.
Thanks, Mark, thanks. We're going to move on now to John O'Leary, Independent. John, is this a serious attempt to represent Galway West in particular, or are you just looking for a paycheck and for a job?
First of all, I'm a businessman, right? And I don't like wasting time. And I came up here on a mission, and the mission is to get people to wake up to the waste that's going on in this country. And I'm not running as an independent, I'm running as a dependent candidate. I'll be as much dependent on the people as the people might think they're dependent on the politicians to do things.
Are you going to address the question I'm after putting to you there?
Yeah, at the end of the day, I came up here on a mission, and the mission is to stop waste. And the first thing I see here is
Are you just looking for a job?
wasteful use of posters.
Are you just looking for a job?
With posters. Sorry?
Are you just looking for a job?
No, I have plenty of work to keep me going. If I'm 68 years of age, I can work.
So when I interviewed you, you said this would be a job to just get. A lot of people say they want to serve the public, but you were saying this is a job.
Yes, I want to serve the public in a specific role, and I'll narrow it down to basically fighting the waste that's going on in this country. We need a minister for waste in this country at the cabinet table.
You've also said to me that a vote for you would be a vote of no confidence in government, but they've already survived with a vote of no confidence.
They survived it in the Dáil. They didn't. They need to be tested now by the people, and they were tested a few weeks ago.
They were tested in the general election a year and a half ago.
Weeks ago. Sorry?
They were tested in the general election.
A general election, first of all, there's about 60% of the people turn out in general election, to be even less in this election.
No one's stopping them, from fairness. Okay, John, your time is up there. On now to Meaja Nick Inlake of the Social Democrats. Meaja, you say you support rural Ireland and Irish farmers, so if climate targets ultimately require reducing cattle numbers, the national herd, would you support herd reductions, yes or no?
When it comes to herd reductions, I think we can all agree that the intensive agriculture we have in this country is having a negative impact on our waterways, it's having a negative impact on low carb, and it's having a negative impact on our ability to produce clean drinking water.
So how much do you want to reduce the national herd by?
I don't have a figure in front of me, but I do think over time we need to shift away from this intensive beef-led agriculture.
Why?
And that doesn't mean because it is unsustainable. It's not sustainable for the land we have in Ireland. It is not sustainable for the farmers as well, because so many farmers up and down this country are living in poverty, and yet there is no way out for them except for to continue digging. There is no alternative presented by this government. And I recognise across rural
So what are they going to do if
people are really struggling.
If there's a beef farmer in Connemara, what are they going to do under a Social Democrats government?
Well, you don't have a lot of beef farmers in Connemara, I'll tell you that.
So it's not that important, so?
But
Farmers
in
aren't
Galway
important
West
to
there
Social
are,
Democrats.
and they are important. But for us, it is about being able to shift away from that in a sustainable way that protects their incomes. Because right now, there is no reasonable alternative for them to maintain their incomes and protect their families.
So what is that alternative?
Well, that alternative is funding different kinds of agriculture, diversifying what we produce in this country, and actually getting us food security, because we can't live on beef alone, and we need to be able to feed ourselves, particularly in a world where we are seeing more and more famines as a result of climate change.
Meaja Nick Inlake of the Social Democrats, thank you. Moving on now to Michael Ryan, Independent. Michael, on your social media platforms, you publicly aligned yourself with the likes of the Burke family and praised their legal approach. So why should voters choose a TikTok personality over experienced public representatives when many people would find those views and associations deeply concerning for someone seeking public office?
Well, I don't think that it's just the fact that I'm a TikToker. I think I have legal experience, went to the university and college in Galway, so I feel that I could represent people by bringing private members' bills forward. Now, I support what the Burke family do. Everybody's entitled to freedom of expression.
What do you support about what they do?
Well, freedom of expression, I think they're entitled to their freedom of expression, so is everybody who works.
Their views on transgenderism, you support those views?
No, they're entitled to what their freedom of expression. So, what their opinion on transgender is their own opinion.
Okay, so what is it you like about them?
Well, freedom of expression, they express freely their opinion, and I respect that as a legal person.
Don't most people do that anyways?
I suppose they do, yeah.
Okay. And what do you bring to the table outside of your TikTok personality?
Well, I think I could bring forward private members' bills, and also I stood at many a protest.
Do you know how to do that? Because considering you've never been a councillor at local level, you've never been in the Dáil.
No, I'm just a normal person and don't regard myself as a politician.
So how are you going to bring forward said motions if you have no experience?
Well, you can bring a private members' bill forward because
how?
Because I studied legislation in the University of Galway, so I think I could bring it forward.
And they go through that in that course, do they?
Yes, okay. Legislators, yeah.
Michael Ryan, Independent, thank you for that. I want to move on now to Sean Kine of Fine Gael. After the last general election, you said you were finished with politics, Sean, but then you ended up going for the Seanad and becoming a senator. Why should people think you're now committed to rejoin the Dáil when you said you were done with politics after the last general election?
Thanks, John. Look,
decided shortly after the last election that I would continue on. I consulted and engaged with people across the constituency, with colleagues in government, and I believed I had a lot to deliver yet to Galway West, and I continued on with that. I've kept my full-time office open.
Was your hand forced by the party?
No, absolutely not. I did it of my own volition, but I engaged with party members across the constituency. Obviously, there was a lot of talk that Connemara was left without any representation, not despite the work that other TDs do, but nobody living in the Connemara area as a TD for the constituency. So I decided to continue on. I've kept my constituency office open full time in my Cullen, Shervisher, Fall and Shin, Treeman the Gael, Gefreshen and Malunian.
You mentioned all the good things during your intro, but do you take any responsibility for the austerity measures we saw during the Fine Gael Labour government?
The austerity measures of that period of time was the time when the IMF were in charge of the country, as you remember. We had a number of crises at that time. We had a housing crisis at that time too, as a housing crisis based on bust banks, bust developers, people in negative equity.
So was everyone else's fault?
No, I didn't say that. People in negative equity, the IMF in charge of the country, and ghost estates. So that was a housing crisis at that time too. So we had a lot to do, and I think we have done that. We've turned the economy around. We now have a situation where we effectively have full employment.
Yeah, okay. Sean Kynefield again, thank you. On now to Dr. Sheila Garrity, Independent. Sheila, what evidence is there that you have the experience or political weight for national politics, or are you simply trying to piggyback on Catherine Connolly's legacy and support base?
Thank you, John, for that question. I'm an educator, I'm a researcher. I went back to education as an adult, raising a family, running a small business. I'm able to achieve a lot of things in one time. I'm a hard worker who achieves results. I've been in the back room of political campaigns for over 20 years. You've mentioned Catherine Connolly, repeal and marriage equality. I've been actively involved in those campaigns. I sit on national government councils, and internationally I've been an advisor to the Minister for Education in Canada. I've done work with the Norwegian government in terms of advisory roles on education. I have a wealth of experience.
So were you too big to earn your stripes as a councillor at a local level?
No, that's not the case.
The
case is that I've always benefited from having an independent left representation that spoke on behalf of the people of Galway West, community-based representation. I benefited from that, and I don't have that representation anymore. So I'm stepping up to provide that representation for the people of Galway West.
You want to talk about the occupied territories bill. Is there not a problem with it in its current format where it's just specific to Israel? Do we not have to do all occupied territories across the world, such as the likes of Georgia?
I think we need to get this one done. The Fianna Fáil in opposition supported the occupied territories. I think specific to Israel to get it done first and to give us a template for how we can move that forward.
No?
Pardon me?
Could that not be seen as anti-Semitic?
It's not anti-Semitic. It's reflecting the United Nations, the International Court of Justice ruling around the behaviour of Israel in the occupied territories, their illegal occupation, and their illegal treatment of the people of Gaza.
Dr. Sheila Garrity, Independent, thank you. On now to Denman Rook of People Before Profit. Denman, the proposed Left Alliance seemingly fractured after you publicly attacked Niall Murphy over alleged shareholdings linked to an Israeli military-connected company. So are you more interested in ideological purity and political point scoring than actually building a united opposition alternative such as Tun McClay proposed?
Yeah, thanks, John. Look, I am a socialist and an activist first. I am principled in my positions there. So I think it's important that if I'm putting myself on a platform like this, that I need to use that to platform the politics and the policies that I would not only hold to myself, but I would hold to everyone else.
Even if it hurt the vote left, transfer left, and the chance of getting a left-wing candidate for Galway West?
No, I don't think I've been working with the other candidates on the left for a while now to build that.
And Niall?
Yeah, and Niall. And even, look, I made my calls to, I challenged that, Niall and the Greens on their decisions there, but I still, in that same comment, in that same public comment, I still continued the call for a vote left, transfer left. I still think that keeping a left seat, including the Greens' participation, is more important than Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil, or Fianna Fáil 2.0.
And how purist do you keep that movement in terms of things like sanctions on Israel? Is it total divestment? Don't take any degrees from the University of Galway. How far do you go down that road? Where's the line?
Yeah, I mean, look, we would be campaigning in People Before Profit, so hopefully leading up to the next general election that we would have a vote left, transfer left on policy issues. This is a trial run, it's a lot looser, so yeah, okay. We'd be building that.
Okay. On now to Noel Thomas of Independent Ireland. Noel, you attended meetings into a group calling itself the IRB and have been quoted in the Irish Times as saying what they spoke about was wonderful. Do you understand why many voters would see involvement with conspiracy-style movements as completely incompatible with serious public office?
Can I just answer that, John? Yes, I find it amusing that's coming up here tonight. But anyway,
why?
First of all, because
you're quoting the Irish Times.
No, hang on a second. That quote you're after making there from the Irish Times was actually reduced again by the Irish Times after I called the actual journalist and explained to him that those words were never used.
Clarify it to us. What did you say? What was wonderful?
What was wonderful?
Yeah.
No, but John, better put it this way. You see, what's going around here all the time is that I'm a member of some group. I'm not a member of any group.
I didn't say you were.
Yeah, but this is the stories that are going around all the time. I'm not. I never have been. I have no intention of ever being. I said, we live in a democracy in this country. We know how politics works here. We know how the election of people is formed. And there's only one way to do that.
Do you renounce the IRB?
I do, of course, yes. I said I've never had anything to do with them, John. So, I find this quite amusing. I said that this topic keeps on popping up, because I said to you, we live in a democracy, thankfully, in this country where people get elected by putting their names forward in front of the electorate, and that's how our choices are made here, how we get our politicians in place. So, it's a great system, and I think that I don't see that system changing any time into the future, to be honest.
That quote is still up on the Irish Times website. So what did you attend said meeting?
I attended a meeting in Oughterard, and I attend many meetings that I have over the years. And
why did you want to attend that one?
A community group asked me to come, John, to that meeting because what they had was a situation where their local nursing home was actually going to be used for an iPass centre. So I was asked to attend the meeting for that reason. And I said, look, I attend many a meeting with different groups that I might not agree with or whatever, but I'll continue to do that right through my political career.
All right, Noel Thomas of Independent Ireland, thank you for that. On now to Neil Barry at Independent. Neil, your leaflet says you want to emancipate your community, yet you give no information from who or how. Is that kind of language really suitable in a political discourse?
Oh, I think it's very, very suitable in Ireland, especially considering the history we've had in emancipation. It's at the time of the repeal of the penal laws. But anyway, back to today.
Who's under control? Can you tell me?
Well, I'll tell you now. So my idea is to restore the powers to the local authorities, and that will diminish or change, alter, let's have a discussion about it, the role of the city manager and the role of the county manager, who has overridden so many good ideas and so many things across all the country. And if I may throw in this as well, when this country is reunited, will the counties of Northern Ireland be beholden to the central managers appointed by Dublin, or will they enjoy some independence?
You gave an example of one project here in the city in terms of the bridge, but we have national framework for planning. Do you want to establish all that and have a free-for-all and Wild West across the country, different standards in different counties?
Yeah, it's a fair point, but I think we really need to bring up the discussion because so many good projects have been cancelled. Usually...
Bring up the discussion, but you're not sure about it already after one question.
No, I am. I'm quite sure about it. That this would be a national endeavour. So what I'm saying is with the bypass and all, we have all of the local projects put on hold. As far as I'm concerned, these good projects are being held hostage by the bypass. We will do that after the bypass. We will do this when the bypass is built. And as people know, we're waiting for 20 years for the bypass.
So how will that help that?
Because I'm saying to take some authority back to the local authorities so we can get the projects done without the government being able to scupper them.
Okay, I want to move on tonight because we did begin tonight with what is consistently the number one issue being raised by voters across Galway West, housing. Whether it's young people unable to buy their first home, families trapped paying more enormous rents, people living with parents in their 30s or communities struggling with homelessness and a lack of supply, housing has become one of the defining political issues of this generation. And voters tonight want more than slogans. They want to know who's responsible for this crisis, what realistic solutions are being offered, and how quickly candidates believe that change can actually happen. So for this section, each candidate will have 1 minute to answer questions on the topic of housing. Once again, these will come in a randomised order. So we start this part of the debate with Senator Sean Kine of Fine Gael. Sean, Fine Gael have been in power throughout the housing crisis, so why should young people in Galway West expect anything other than more excuses and rising rents, especially when your own former Housing Minister Owen Murphy said the government lacked the political will to tackle the crisis in an all-of-government approach?
Thanks, John. And it is the most important issue at doors and across the constituency. We've seen record investment in capital infrastructure and capital housing schemes by government. We've seen some 8,000 houses built this year, some 36,000 nationally, and we need to continue to invest. We need to continue to improve. We've passed the new planning laws to try and streamline decision making, which was taking too long. That was a comprehensive piece of legislation that took a considerable period of time to get through both houses because it was a complex area. We've seen the critical infrastructure bill. We've seen investment to Ishke Éireann and the national grid to try and improve uptake of wastewater and water infrastructure as well, which is key.
But your own former housing minister said government didn't have the will to do this in all a government approach. What do you say to that?
I don't agree with that at all. We have seen, as I said, record investment. We've seen.
Why did he say that in his book, Running Out of Politics?
We've seen plans that have delivered increased supply, but we need to continue investing, continue building right across this constituency.
All right, Sheila Garrity, independent, Dr. Sheila Garrity. Sheila, do you support tighter restrictions on short-term lets like Airbnbs in Galway, even if it impacts things like tourism and local property owners, in order to free up more homes for long-term renters and families?
Well, the short-term letting and tourism bill, which has been delayed again by this government, won't come into effect until December. It only is going to affect Galway City. It's not going to affect communities of 15,000 homes or less. So it'll have no impact on Connemara, on east of the county, anywhere in Galway County other than the city.
So you want to see that threshold changed?
I do want to see that threshold changed, and I want to see it
even if it impacts tourism.
I want to see it specifically to. We have families in this constituency that don't have homes and can't find homes. I have met more three-generation families on the doorsteps than I have ever before in my 20 years of canvassing. The housing system we have in Ireland is dysfunctional, and short-term lettings is contributing to that. So my concern is particularly about single-family homes, whole family homes. There are 280 homes available to rent on Airbnb in County Galway this morning. I checked the figures, and Daft.ie had one apartment that could accommodate a parent and two children.
All right, Sheila, thanks for that. On now to Neil Barry, independent. Neil, you talk about giving more power back to local communities on housing, but Galway already struggles to build homes because of objections, delays, and planning battles. So do you accept that giving even more local veto power could actually make the housing crisis even worse than it already is?
Did I say local veto power? But anyway, the Airbnb, I think, is what we're talking about here in the short-term lets.
Why would you explain that so?
Yeah.
Exactly what amount of power will local authorities have in housing under your plans?
I think that the local authorities should be building more houses, yes, but I think they also should be clamping down on the Airbnbs. There should be a register of all the people who are doing Airbnb. There should be perhaps a tax put on that. We could argue to what degree. We could argue these points out, but it has to be tackled.
What are you putting forward?
I'm putting forward what the other candidates have been saying here too, that we need some legislation for the short-term lets, and it's been cancelled, as I say.
Okay, but what other positions do you have on housing?
Well, if we have less tourists walking around the streets all the time, we can have more room for Irish people and anybody else who's here.
So just to clarify, you're not in favour of giving local authorities power to do any additional things on housing?
Yes, to build more houses, why not, like they did before?
How?
Well, I don't know, maybe build a few council houses and find a few sites in Galway, maybe?
Okay, I want to move on now to Denman Ruck of People Before Profit. Denman, People Before Profit wants rents freezes and large-scale state intervention, but will this just cause landlords to flee the market and make the problem even worse than it already is?
Look, I care about people being housed, so whether that's a family home or affordable rents. I don't care about landlords' investments. I want less landlords. I think that we should...
So get rid of all the rental stock.
Yeah, let the councils own the rental stock, invest in...
Is that not going to displace people in the short term? That not displace people in the short term, no?
Ban evictions, let tenant in situ, if they give them the option to buy, if they can't or don't want to, let the councils buy.
So let your landlords take it on the chin and go bankrupt.
Look, I care more about the working people of Ireland than I do about...
Should you not care about all your constituents?
No, I'm advocating for people who sell their labour, not for landlord investment property.
And the state construction company, will that work or be another quango?
No, I think it would work if we had the proper government in place that resourced it. I'm standing on a radical idea of public money should be used for public assets, so we should be publicly investing in our housing stock.
Okay, on now to Mark Lohan of Sinn Féin. Mark, Sinn Féin promises massive housing delivery, but the industry is already warning there aren't enough construction workers on the ground to meet the current demand. So are your housing targets actually realistic? Are you simply making promises you know you cannot actually deliver?
No, look, John, a Sinn Féin government, obviously this by-election won't change government, but it can send a powerful message to this government about the need for a cost of living package. But ultimately we want to bring down this government and to have a general election, and then we can implement what a Sinn Féin-led government where we would considerably ramp up the delivery of social and affordable homes, address dereliction and vacancy, and get to the root of the problem by building infrastructure.
How will there's a shortfall of 80,000 according to the ESRI in the sector? How are you going to do that?
We need to do everything that is in our power to do it. We have seen failure upon failure from Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael on the delivery of housing.
It's a nice sound, but you're not telling me how.
But John, at the last election, we were told by Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael that they were delivering 40,000 homes last year. That was factually incorrect.
So you can be factually incorrect as well.
It was trumped up. We want an alternative government, and we put in a motion of no confidence in this government that Independent Ireland voted in and kept them in power last October.
All right.
We need a new general election.
Thanks, Mark. I need to move on now to Michael Ryan, Independent. Michael, Ireland's housing crisis is being driven by construction inflation, labour shortages, planning delays and financing costs as well. So can you explain specifically how you would increase the housing supply without driving up state borrowing, construction costs or private rents even further?
Well, I suppose to start off, a lot of immigration is a big problem, and a lot of people are immigrating to Australia because they're getting more lucrative opportunities and jobs there, I suppose, and better pay. So I suppose the government could bring in better pay and bring these people into the housing market to build more houses.
When you say the government should bring in better pay, what
better pay for the builders, I suppose, and plasterers.
But a lot of them are paid by the private sector. How will government do that?
Well, I suppose they could implement a minimum wage or something like that, you know, or a better wage package.
Minimum wage for the construction sector.
Well, it incentivise them, I suppose, to stay here as opposed to immigration, because that's a big factor, I believe, in the housing market, and we're losing a lot of these to other countries.
All right, Michael Ryan, Independent, thank you for that. We're going to take a pause there and allow the candidates to get a bit of refreshments and use the facilities if they should wish. We're going to continue with some of the housing questions for our candidates that have a chance to come in on that as well, just after news at 7 o'clock. So do stay with us. If you have any questions, get them into us as well. We will be fielding a select number of questions from the audience as well between now and 8 o'clock. So still lots to come. We'll have another topic or two to get through with the candidates as well, and we'll be doing a similar format and similar style to that as well. Don't forget that the whole election debate will be podcasted on our social media channels and on our website as well, and we'll be sharing that just after the election debate tonight as well. Throna a winch na Galway Rash to Ration Note.
What's the break? How long's the break? No idea. Is it about 6 minutes? Everybody's still very happy. 58.
To help, Sean, because I was.
Ross is listening anyway. It's grand.
And you're welcome back to our Galway West by-election debate here in the Galmouth Hotel in Galway City, and we're staying with the issue of housing. And I want to go next to Helen Ogbu of Labour. Helen, Labour talks about housing as a human right, but the last time your party was in government, it backed us cuts and policies that many people blame for deepening today's crisis. So why should voters believe that Labour would do anything differently now rather than repeat the same mistakes under a more progressive slogan?
Well, thank you so much, John, for that question. Well, I joined the Labour Party just about 3 years ago, so I wasn't in the party when the things that you've highlighted happened. And we should also acknowledge some of the good work that the Labour Party did. They provided free medical card for children as well. So they took some important steps that benefited the people, but I was not in the party. But one thing I want to talk about housing is the steps that we, the Labour Party, have proposed that we're going to take. And that is to build more homes, and that is by transforming the land agency into a state corporation. It was done in Chantala in the 1940s, and I believe that now that we have the money, we can do it. It's how we ramp up more houses.
Would that not be another quango, another cook to spoil the broth?
Well, it's not going to be a quango. It's something that happened in the 1940s. It happened in Chantala. Chantala was built by the corporation, and we can do it now. So it's something that is doable.
All right, I want to go on now to Mike Cupboard of Independent. Mike, Galway desperately needs more student accommodation and housing supply, yet residents in your own West Side base have repeatedly objected to major developments locally. So will you support housing initiatives even if it goes against local interests?
I think the one you're referring to, John, is the West Side Shopping Centre. So it's not developments that they've opposed, it's development in the middle of a shopping centre. And the message is very clear. We all understand, and I met the Students' Union last week, they do need student accommodation. And I think more of an onus should be on the college, the universities, to deliver on-campus accommodation as well, and not just look at the local communities. There's a real fear on that case we're referred to in the local community of losing the local shopping centre. You're talking communities that were built, and you're talking about housing in general. These were estates built by the local authority over many decades, when there was also austerity as well, by the way, where local authorities were able to step up to the mark and build. So it's not about objecting to housing development per se.
So you want government to fund universities more so, is it?
Universities should be able to build on campus, absolutely, and that's the message I got from
You won't
students.
support government if they don't go on that approach, because that's not the approach they're currently taking.
Well, I think government needs to, in terms of student accommodation, I think the universities need to develop on campus. There's any amount of land, first and foremost. I think local authorities should be given the power to build local authority, public housing and public land, which was taken away for several years. And then the final point is, all this cannot be delivered, John. Let's get fair investment on infrastructure and wastewater, etc.
Okay, yeah, I want to move on to AJ Cahill of the Irish People Party. AJ, your party talks about re-migration and encouraging large numbers of Irish people to return home, while also blaming immigration for the housing crisis. So where exactly are all these people supposed to live? And is there not a contradiction there?
No, I think you got it the wrong way around. We're talking about getting large numbers of people to leave, not to come back.
You don't want Irish people to come back, no?
No, we'd like them to come back, but when we talk about re-migration...
So where's that balance?
If you listen, the re-migration we were talking about initially is getting large numbers of people who are here to leave.
How?
Well, it's really simple. You know, first of all, those who are on welfare, those who are in social housing, you know, who are across the state, we just start ending that, like the government started to announce with the Ukrainians. Then we start looking...
How far would you go down that road, though? Would you go against the European Charter on Human Rights?
There's carve-outs in all those charters.
We're signed up to them.
There is massive carve-outs that the governments could use of those, and they don't even come to that.
Well, Farage is on about getting rid of it, so are you not going to get rid of it?
No, this is about stabilising the country.
All right. We want to move on now to Thomas Welby, Independent. Thomas, people across Connemara say that planning restrictions are forcing young families out of their own communities because they can't build on family land. So after years in local politics, as you keep mentioning, do you accept that councillors and planners have effectively helped hollow out rural Galway?
No, well, John, recently the planning record in Galway at the minute is over 90%. I mean, there has been some issues in some areas of Connemara where you have issues with land, you know, the environmental issues where the land isn't good enough to treat effluent. You know, so I mean, very rarely people are refused just on housing need on the basis. It's more engineering issues like roads or it's site suitability.
So local councils take no responsibility at all?
John, I don't officiate over planning. I do the policy with Galway County Council, and then
The policy hasn't failed, no?
No, John, the policy is the policy, and then you have the operations of it after, like you have to, can the site comply with EPA? If the site can't comply with EPA, it cannot be developed. So the policies are there, and I'm quite happy. A lot of the policies are very solid.
So it's other people's fault? There's no accountability?
No, John, you're not understanding the issue correctly. Okay. If you cannot treat sewage on a site, you cannot build a house on it. Simple as that.
All right, Thomas Welby, thank you for that. Moving on now to Meaja Nick Inlake of the Social Democrats. Meaja, the Social Democrats want to replace rent pressure zones with a new rent reference system. But with Galway rents already among the highest in the country, how can renters trust your policy won't simply become another complicated system that still allows landlords to keep pushing up prices?
Thank you, John. I think when you look at our entire housing policy, the rent reference system is one segment of all the measures we recommend to put into place to protect renters.
So it's not a priority? No.
Well, it's part of the whole solution. So I suppose if you just did one thing of the things we suggest, you're not going to get anywhere. But we do need to protect renters from unfair rent increases. We need to see a cap in rents currently, because we are in a housing emergency where rents are skyrocketing.
Would it not be, just on reference rents, would it not be too convoluted to actually implement that? Because that's what the Minister has said in this regard.
Well, what's more convoluted? Cost rental that people can't afford, a maze you have to go through with the RTB on whether or not your landlord has breached your lease and whether or not that is actually enforceable when it comes to bringing down your rent when they've illegally jacked it up. What's more complicated? Having to navigate the HAP system, having to navigate renting in this country. These things are possible, we just need the ambition to actually achieve them in our society.
Okay, moving on now to Noel Thomas of Independent Ireland. Noel, you repeatedly called for faster planning and fewer restrictions in places like Connemara, but you've also been part of the local political system for years while families still face delays, refusals and planning battles. So why should voters believe you can fix a system you've already been involved in overseeing and perhaps even objecting to from time to time?
Well, I suppose the answer to that, John, is because I suppose planning is something that I deal with a huge amount myself, and I help to secure planning for many as a person in the community. And I suppose one of the most positive things that I've done is my time as a councillor there. It was recently in the last county development plan, I actually brought in a policy to allow for backland development, which meant an awful lot, in particular to some of the more rural areas in Galway, where people had developed a line of houses in the front and they still had family land behind them. So what I wanted to do was encourage people to be able to stay in their communities and live with their communities.
So you take no responsibility in terms of what local government has failed to do for planning?
Well, what we're trying to do, I suppose, is correct the mistakes that this government have made over the years, because that policy that I'm just talking about was something they got rid of. And as I said, it's vitally important. Our declining populations in some of these rural communities, we need to put in policies that are strong there to try and help to increase the population, keep the populations there, and help support all our schools and creches and everything else in those communities. And that policy, I think, is doing exactly that.
All right, on now to Cillian Kane of Fianna Fáil. Cillian, during Fianna Fáil's time in government, Galway has seen soaring rents, overcrowded student accommodation, and people paying huge amounts of money for substandard living conditions. So do you accept that government housing policy has failed not just on supply, but on basic housing standards and quality of life?
Look, I suppose I'm more concerned about dealing with the actual issue and not the symptoms. And I suppose when you look at the work that's been done around critical infrastructure now at the moment, we need to look at tomorrow. And the reality is, where we look at Galway County Council, for example, we have an extremely high level of planning applications being granted, but when it comes to multi-unit developments, we are lagging in terms of infrastructure.
So you're happy with Fianna Fáil's record on housing?
I believe that there's a lot more that needs to be done. There's good work being done. You look at the LDA sites.
Is Fianna Fáil the right message of Fianna Fáil candidate? The right message?
I do believe so, because look, you look around here and the very people...
Is that not people saying that they're happy?
The very people that will be talking about we need more will be the very people that will be objecting tomorrow morning when it comes to a development in terms of infrastructure. That's why the civil reform bill, we need to be serious. And I would say this is a public representative. I'm more worried about getting homes built. I'm more worried about getting infrastructure built.
Even if we steamroll the climate, it doesn't matter?
Well, look, we have to have our priorities, and my priority is to see delivery for the people of Galway in terms of homes and infrastructure.
All right, I want to move on now to Orla Nugent of Ainsdale. Orla, Ainsdale says it wants to use tax incentives to bring Irish construction workers home to tackle the housing crisis. But is it really credible to promise special tax breaks for returning workers when the country already can't house the people living here now? And how would those incentives even be funded legally and fairly?
Well, first of all, construction isn't viable at the minute. So to tackle that, we have to make it viable. So we want to cut VAT on construction and connection charges on homes. So that would amount to about €50,000 in reduction in price per unit of housing.
I'm asking about the incentives though for workers to come back.
Yes, but you also said that they need houses to live in when they come back as well. So there's in that is.
I asked you this question before, and I asked you, did you know whether this was legal or not? You said you didn't know. You look into it. Have you looked into it since?
Yes. No, I thought you said is it legal 0% VAT. I have, and yes, you can make it legal.
On the tax incentives for specifically
I thought it was
workers.
On the 0% VAT.
So you
asked me that time. No, we are. It is viable, and we can do it.
Is it legal?
Yes, we can make it legal.
Okay, you can make it legal. Okay.
Yeah, and therefore in that operation, Shamrock as well, we also want to bring back healthcare workers. And we pay so much in agency workers that we should be able to use that money as well.
All right, I want to move on now to Niall Murphy of the Green Party. Niall, young people across Connemara are being forced out of their own communities because of strict planning restrictions and years of political inaction. So after decades of experienced local politicians, the promising solutions, and former councillors like yourself, aren't you part of that reason that rural Galway can no longer keep its own people living there?
I think there's two different challenges here. Like one is farmers living on their own farms, which they should obviously be able to do. But the second challenge is if people are going to live rurally, ideally it's in the towns and villages. And very often when I talk to people, that they want to live, where they can walk to school and walk to a shop, but that's not, they can't get permission there because Uisce Éireann doesn't provide the infrastructure in the towns and villages. That's the key problem we've had to solve, so that there is housing supply in the towns and villages, and then less demand for people to build on. Those that are lucky enough to have their own land want to build on their own land because that's cheaper than trying to get into the town or village.
Do you want to get rid of once-off housing?
Well, I want a better supply of houses in the towns and villages, and then there wouldn't be as much demand for once-off. Because once-off,
so not ban it, but just make it more lucrative.
There's a planning system there that decides when it's allowed and when it's not allowed, and obviously there's different circumstances, family circumstances.
Do you want to make it stricter?
I want to offer more options, and the option should be living in the town or village, and that's not an option right now because there isn't enough investment in Irish water.
Okay, I want to move on now to John O'Leary, Independent. John, across the Gaeltacht, young people own family land but still can't afford or get permission to build because of planning restrictions, infrastructure costs and lending rules as well. So what specific economic changes would you make to rural once-off housing to actually make it achievable again for local families?
I'm going to say something.
Would you take your microphone there, please, John?
I am a structural engineer. I built my own 250 square metre house. But for this week, I'm moving into a 1 square metre house, which can actually, believe it or not, accommodate 2 people and has an oven. So if anyone wants to see how small you can live in, go to Wooey the Movie, WOOW, the movie.
And do you want to address the question as well, John? No?
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that if people want to see how ridiculous this country has gone in terms of all the red tape, legislation.
What are your solutions?
I'm a structural engineer and I worked in a university, right?
What legislation
Insulation-wise alone in our houses, we've gone ridiculous with the insulation of the floors. There's no need for the levy.
Fine, John, but what solutions do you have? I'm trying to give you a
We've made housing too expensive for people. And homelessness goes beyond anyone that can't afford to buy a house is homeless.
How do you fix it?
Anyone that can't afford to buy a house is homeless. In the story.
All right.
Look at Wooey the Movie or Woo.ie.
Thanks, John. Thanks for that. I want to move on to our next topic. We're going to move on to another issue which frustrates people across Galway every single day: transport and traffic. Now, for many people listening tonight, traffic congestion in Galway is no longer just an inconvenience. It affects your work, your family life, your business, your mental health, public transport reliability and the overall quality of life across the county as well. Now, people in Galway have spent decades hearing promises about solutions: ring roads, public transport upgrades, park and ride systems, rail improvements, cycling infrastructure and rural connectivity as well. Yet many voters tonight feel the situation is getting worse rather than actually getting better. And there's also a growing divide politically between those who believe that Galway needs major new infrastructure for roads and those who argue that the future must focus on public transport and reducing car dependency. So tonight, each candidate will have 1 minute to answer a question on this topic. And we're starting first with Denman Rook of People Before Profit. Denman, People Before Profit opposes major road expansion projects like the Ring Road, but Galway commuters are already spending hours stuck in traffic every week. So are your policies realistic for working people who simply cannot rely on public transport here in Galway?
Well, yeah, look, the traffic is car-centric at the moment. We've had, decades of government policy that have incentivized those things. So we're saying we need to invest in our public transport, make it fast, reliable, and free to incentivize people out of their cars. Most of the traffic and our opposition to the Ring Road is most of the traffic is, I think it's like 97% in.
Can you not also have road projects? Can you not have both, no?
Well, look, we got to look at the climate as well. We need to reduce our emissions, so we think that would be a waste of money. Look, we were talking about government waste here earlier. We think that would be a waste of money. We should be investing in green initiatives, in active travel, dedicated bus corridors, safe and segregated cycle lanes. re-pedestrianisation of certain areas. Like that's what we should be moving towards to get people out of their cars.
I want to move on now to Dr. Sheila Garrity, Independent. Sheila, many politicians support the idea of GLUAS in principle, but critics say it risks becoming another expensive Galway transport promise with no realistic delivery timeline as of yet. So can you honestly say that GLUAS is a serious near-term solution to Galway traffic, or is it simply politically popular to support?
I've supported the GLUAS project for over 20 years, John, and the reason we don't have a properly costed solution is because the National Transport Authority has put the GLUAS on the back foot. It's suggesting it might be something to look at, but it really hasn't taken it seriously. Where Cork City was behind Galway in proposing a light rail system, and they've now had that fast-tracked. So GLUAS needs to be taken seriously. Any city that has developed a light rail system would never look back and say that was a mistake. I've shared examples of cities like Montpellier that went from 2000 with no light rail system to now having 5 systems, reduced their traffic by over 50%, and they've now moved to a free system of using
How can you change that though if you get elected in this by-election? A government candidate would have more sway in that because the government are in power now. It's not going to change the metrics.
The government might be in power, but they're not prioritising GLUAS. I'm committing to the people of Galway West to be a thorn in the side of the government for the issues that really affect the people who live here. Thank you, John.
Sean Kine, Fine Gael. Sean, Fine Gael has spent years promising the Galway Ring Road, park and ride systems and major public transport upgrades, yet commuters are still sitting in gridlock every day. Some of these predate your own political career, so why should we believe you now?
Well, I've been a strong advocate for the Galway City Ring Road. We now have planning permission, and as I said, once the final...
Submissions are still open to the 18th?
I appreciate that, and once we get the final all clear, we will build that project. The money is committed. We've committed money in the past. We will commit again. Bus Connects has just gotten planning permission and got over that. We need to proceed with building that.
You're in politics a long time, and they've just gotten planning permission.
They've just gotten planning permission. That's the process. They've just gotten planning permission in the last number of months, just as Galway Port and other projects have as well.
Galway Port have no funding mechanism.
I've supported the Western Rail Corridor reopening from Athenry to Tune. There have been people against that. I've been a strong supporter. We've delivered the White Column bypass.
Galway Port, do you want to come in on that? We have no funding mechanism currently.
The ports policy has to be reviewed, and I'm confident that will be done to allow for that. We've seen the upgrades of the N59 road. Again, the ports policy will be reviewed shortly, and Minister Kenny is involved in working on that. But I believe the Galway City Ring Road, as part of the Galway transportation strategy, will allow the freeing up of capacity within the city and will allow for the proper economic development of the city and the county, particularly Connemara.
Okay, I want to move on now to Michael Ryan, Independent. Michael, a lot of people have criticised Bus Connect's proposals around areas like Shantla Park, but Galway also desperately needs better public transport infrastructure. So what plan would you propose to reduce congestion and improve bus capacity and traffic flow in the city?
Well, I suppose bus capacity, a light rail system is what we need, not just bus capacity, I think, around the whole of the city. And as in my grandfather's time, there was a railway line from Galway to Clifton. And I think that should be brought back because it'd be great for commuters, for students, it'd be environmentally friendly. As we know, the ring road, we could be... That's
not even part of the All-Ireland Rail Review. That's not even on the cards.
No, it's not, but it should be. I believe it should be. It's something very, very important.
Even after all the work done on the Rail Review?
Yeah, but I think the ring road is absolutely disgraceful. How long it took to come to fruition and how long it's going to take to be built is disgraceful.
Well, what can you do about that? That's the planning process we have here in the country.
Well, I can't do nothing about it, but it's the government that should do something about it, and it's government in action that is the problem. So I can be a voice to bring all this to government.
You're happy enough for Bus Connects in their current plan and as they are, yeah?
I think Bus Connects is good, but it can be better. It can be improved. Well, I think it could be rolled out more, I suppose, across more areas.
Okay, I want to move on now to Niall Murphy of the Green Party. Niall, the Green Party strongly backs expanding cycleways and greenways across Galway, but many commuters and rural residents argue that road space is being reduced while traffic congestion continues to worsen. So are green transport policies prioritising cyclists over the daily reality facing thousands of motorists and businesses across Galway?
I don't think so. If you look at the journeys within Galway, a huge percentage of them are less than 2 kilometres. A huge percentage of them are to the schools. You can see during the school breaks and school holidays, traffic problem vanishes. So what you need to do is make it possible for school kids to get to school by bike. In Ireland, more secondary school girls drive themselves to school than cycle to school. That's a horrific statistic.
Even if it means private buses can't pass each other on the road.
So that's not a problem anywhere that I know of in Galway for standard sized buses. If you have an oversized bus which was bought when you know what roads you're going to go on, that's a private bus problem. No public transport bus has a problem with any of the roads on their routes in Galway.
So should the private buses be compensated, or is it just tough luck?
Well,
get rid of your routes.
When they're buying a private bus, they know what the standard width of a lane is. And they know, and there already were roads in Galway, like the bridge by the cathedral, that were narrower. So the private bus operators do need to plan ahead. I think that some of these arguments were totally overplayed in the media when the Ballyban bus cycling was put in.
All right, I want to move on now to Thomas Welby, Independent. Thomas, many transport experts believe that Galway will eventually need a light rail system like Lewis, because roads alone will not solve congestion. So do you accept that you need to prioritise this project that could fundamentally transform transport in Galway in the more longer term?
Well, first, John, I am completely committed to the N6.
I'm asking about Glewis, though.
Yes, but I would just say that I could see Glewis could be an add-on at a later stage, because Glewis is going to move people from one side of the city to the other side.
Is that not exactly what we need?
Well, what about the cars that have to come through the city? We're still going to have a problem with the cars coming through the city, John.
A very small percentage, according to ERA of the road itself.
That's what everybody says. It's a very small. It's a very small percentage, but it's a percentage that has to be addressed in relation.
So forget about the 75%. Forget about the 75% living across the road.
We're too car dependent in this country in relation to, and one of the issues is the weather. You step outside today, people can't cycle to work. We're car dependent. I feel huge frustration with people out there in the cities, in the counties.
So ring road or bus?
Because the buses aren't working for them.
Ring road
and
or
I
bus?
think we need a situation of the buses. If the buses work better, we might need as many cars. But unfortunately, we're not at that stage yet.
Okay, I want to move on now to Neil Barrade, Independent. Neil, Galway commuters are sitting in traffic for hours every week, and your answer is monitored traffic lights and a reopening of a pedestrian railway bridge. So do you genuinely believe that those ideas are serious solutions, or are you underestimating the scale of Galway's transport disaster? A lot of these in your own backyard.
Yeah, they are some of the solutions. One of the ones I would like to bring up as well is the bus service that goes between the University Hospital and Merlin Park Hospital. If you're all familiar with that, it uses the Quincentenary Bridge. It is the only public bus that uses the Quincentenary Bridge. It's an excellent service. Anybody who uses it will tell you, but it's not allowed to stop along the way, and why should it? Because it's a shuttle bus for the hospital. Could we use the Quincentenary Bridge for all the normal buses so that the buses don't all have to go into the city centre, please. So all the buses don't have to go into the city centre.
Is this a national issue?
Yes, it is an actual issue.
A national issue. Should you run for local government if this is the issue you're bringing up?
Well, as I was saying before about the local government, if we don't have the local powers, how can we do a lot of these things? The National Transport Authority don't want us to do it. However, we'll have to get into the government to change the law. Yes, that's a good point. Thank you, Sean.
All right, I'm moving on to Helen Ogbu of Labour now. Helen, Labour has proposed higher taxes on SUVs and larger vehicles, but in rural Galway, many elderly people and families rely on those vehicles because of poor roads, weather, and the complete lack of public transport. So you understand why people outside of the city see policies like that as deeply out of touch with rural life?
Well, I think, John, thank you for that question. Like, what we need in terms of transportation, especially in the rural areas, is for us to expand on the bus services, extend the bus services. I think that's what we need to look at, because how many people have the SUVs? We need to look at who needs the transport. We need students who need to transport to school. We need workers who need services at night time to be able to move from the rural area and come to the city where they get their jobs. We also need students to be able to move freely.
Just to clarify, you're in support of your party's policy to propose higher taxes on SUVs and large vehicles, even if it will impact rural Galway people?
Well, I think the issue is to look at what the people are asking for, the issue around transport, which is expanded and extended public transport system, which is what people are asking for.
You support that policy from your party?
We need to look into expanding and extending the public transport system for the people.
Okay, on now to AJ Cahill of the Irish People. AJ, your party repeatedly links immigration and population growth to pressure on infrastructure, but Galway's traffic chaos has existed for decades through failures in planning, roads and public transport. So it's misleading to blame newcomers for a transport crisis created by generations of political incompetence. This has been going on since the 80s now, long before we had mass migration, quote unquote.
Yeah, that's a bit of a stretch to blame people who aren't here. The problems with transport are due to the contempt the government has for its own people. the ring road is proposed, but there is other solutions that could be implemented next week that would solve this, such as the city manager just needs to call the schools and say, can we agree to start 30 minutes earlier? Because we know that when the schools are off, the traffic is greatly relieved.
Does the executive have that power here in Galway City?
No, they could just call them and have a conversation with them, and I'd say they might be very receptive to it. It doesn't cost any money to talk. The other thing they could do
Does that not just move the problem?
No, it doesn't. It time shifts the problem. So they're not all right.
Staggered work times, which
No, it's just staggered opening times for school.
Okay. I want to move on now to Mark Lohan of Sinn Féin. Mark, Sinn Féin promises major transport and infrastructure projects for Galway, but with construction costs soaring, labour shortages worsening, and major projects already delayed nationwide, are you just giving voters realistic transport solutions, or simply promising everything to everyone while Galway commuters remain stuck in traffic for another decade?
Well, you're correct on one thing, John, that Galway is still in gridlock, and the solutions to that are, the ring road is part of that solution, and we support that. But also there are other solutions that are reasonable and can be funded, such as the emerging preferred routes for the Glewis. Now that the feasibility study is done, that needs to be explored, and let's explore it in a realistic way. Let's plan it out. That's a long-term solution.
How soon would Sinn Féin have that up and running, the Glewis?
That would be, the Glewis would be a long-term plan. I think we need to look at the emerging preferred route immediately, but in the immediate term, Bus Connects. Bus Connects has been delayed because of this ring road, and we have to remember this government has been responsible for the delay in that. And Bus Connects.
But it's been going through the planning process. Is that not misleading? Say it's government.
They've pushed
planning
it.
Process.
They've pushed it back out.
Independent government.
But John, we're not just Bus Connects, which will help buses in the city, and we need 24-hour buses. But the 424 and the 419 in Connemara need to be adequately resourced as well, and they're not.
Okay, I want to move on now to John O'Leary, Independent. John, you're not from Galway and you're simultaneously running in another constituency in the form of Dublin Central. So do you genuinely understand the daily reality Galway commuters face sitting in traffic for hours every week? And why should voters trust someone not living locally to solve a crisis that they don't personally live through?
Excellent question. First of all, I've done cycling and driving around Galway.
How many times?
I am a cyclist, right? But I know that the car is king, and I respect that. People that own cars want to be able to go from A to B. People that own cars don't want to take public transport that's going to be delayed. It's not going to get them to their destination. So we got to see how we can use the car more efficiently. As I drive around Galway, I notice that there's bus lanes empty, that if people three in a car can go into that lane, so you allow people three in a car to go into that lane and use it, everyone will benefit.
To make dual carriageway around
Galway. Traffic lights, for example, people can go into the bus lane and then free up the gridlock at the traffic lights.
Get rid of bus lanes.
Traffic lights in
Galway. Get rid of bus lanes. Okay, yeah, that's fine. John O'Leary, Independent, thank you for that. Moving on now to Mike Cubbard, Independent. Mike, projects like the Ballyban Active Travel Scheme have become hugely controversial in the media, with residents complaining about congestion, safety concerns and disruption, while politicians send mixed messages on active travel as well. So do you accept that local politicians, including yourself, have helped create confusion and mistrust around the very transport projects Galway now desperately needs?
I think the first thing that has to happen, John, in terms of these projects like Ballyban, is the communication has to be critical at the start. You have to tell people exactly what's happening and when it's happening, how it's happening. I think there was a real failure here in this project.
Did you vote for it?
Did I vote for it? Yes, I did. Yeah.
Do you regret that?
I regret how it was carried out. I think it was a shambles of
But you don't regret your vote supporting it initially?
No. And others too. I think we need to have proper conversations on this, John. And this goes back to the whole point, and I'm actually dismayed by the conversation this evening that we're talking again the same way it was spoken 20 years ago, where all the eggs were put in one basket, the ring road, and we forgot about everything else. Public transport, cross-city links, bus connects, increased rail capacity, segregated safe cycleways where people can get to A to B safely. And also the Glewis. Let's not be saying that it's a project for down the road. Why not be ambitious for Galway? Why not put everything on the table together, and let's not be apologetic for that. And the last thing I'll say, John, is the NTA based in Dublin is a farce, if you ask me. We should have an NTA office here in the west coast of Ireland that could be answered to directly, and not be waiting months and months on end for Galway City or Galway County Council to even get a meeting with the NTA.
I want to move on now to Meaja Nick Inlake of the Social Democrats. Meaja, the Social Democrats support the principle that the polluter pays through environmentally based transport taxes and charges. But in rural Galway, many people have no alternative to driving. So do you accept that policies like that risk pushing ordinary workers and families simply because they live outside of cities and places like your own Connemara?
I think when you don't implement fast, fair climate transition, you will see people suffer, and that's why we have always advocated that the polluter pays, but also that people on low and middle incomes are supported in making that change to cleaner technologies, making that change away from pollution. Because when you look at our entire policy, it's not just carbon tax, it's not just fuel excise, it's about ensuring that it is cheaper and easier for people.
What cleaner options are available to farmers? What cleaner options are available if you have a tractor?
Well, I suppose when it comes to that, it's about being able to minimise pollution, minimise reliance on fossil fuels. Because it means that you may have to drive a diesel tractor, but do you have to drive a diesel car, or can you have an electric car? For many people, that is totally out of their price range. We want to make it available to everyone, because without that, we will not get the just transition that we need, and we will not get people moving.
I want to move on now to Noel Thomas of Independent Ireland. Noel, Independent Ireland wants widespread road widening and more passing bays across rural Ireland, but transport planners and the NTA guidelines increasingly prioritise traffic calming, active travel and reducing road expansion. So are your policies realistic modern transport planning, or do they simply return to the old style road politics?
I just find that funny, John, that statement you made there about our policies being about widening roads and all that.
It's in your documents.
John,
have you read your documents?
Yeah, but you've got to take them out of context if you want, and that's fine. But I mean,
what you
see, John, really is the mistakes that we made here in Galway, and this is something that we have been shouting about.
What's out of context there? You said it's out of context.
You're talking about us just coming out of widening roads. That's not what we're about, right? As I said to you, what we've got to do here is learn from the mistakes made in Galway. Galway's only a small city. It's quite easy, and it shouldn't be as difficult as it is. As we've seen the examples in Knocknacarra, where we've got massive areas of housing built, no public transport corridors preserved in those areas.
What am I missing from your manifesto? What am I missing?
What I'm trying to do, John, is explain to you what we want to see happen here in Galway. As I said, we need to think about the future. Don't make the mistakes we're making in the past. In particular, when it comes to the new area, Argonne for development, put the transport corridor in public transport corridors in place first. Ensure that we have a proper way to move the people around the city.
Stop making mistakes
like what we've got in Parkmore at the moment. People coming on to me again today about it. Disaster design injunctions. We've got to stop the messing and do it right.
Okay, I want to move on now to Orla Nugent of Aintu. Orla, Aintu says it wants to significantly expand public transport while also cutting fares for passengers. But with the state already under huge pressure financially, how realistic is it to promise more services and cheaper tickets at the same time, especially in sparsely populated rural areas like Connemara?
Well, I do believe that we need increased capacity on our buses, and we need more regular buses. People are really complaining the likes of or more in different places out to Connemara that the bus isn't regular enough. And if we're, I suppose, serious about climate action, that we should make things, we should incentivise people by cheaper fares. That's not going to necessarily get rid of all the cars, because we do live in the west of Ireland.
Is this all costed?
Is it? Yes.
Yeah, what are the customs on it?
I don't have the figures now in front of me, but we are wasting a huge amount on the bike shed, 2 bike sheds actually, and printers in the Dáil. So there's a lot of money going to waste, and it's not going to the right services.
Okay. And just in terms of things like Lewis, are you a supporter of that?
I would be in support of it, but I do think we have to focus on what we can do right now. So increase capacity, increase regular bus services. In the likes of say or more, the population has ballooned and we need more regular buses.
All right, on now to Cillian Kane of Fianna Fáil. Cillian, Clare Galway has suffered years of severe congestion and repeated promises of a bypass from Fianna Fáil and successive governments. So do you accept that people there are tired of hearing timelines and announcements for a project that still hasn't materialised in any realistic shape or form?
Well, first of all, I think I've never delivered that message in terms of the Outer Ring Road or the Relief Road in terms of Clare Galway. What I have been working on with Clare Galway is the drainage and attenuation scheme. Well, I can't speak for other government colleagues, I can only speak for myself, and that's the reality on it. But I think it's interesting to see what people are saying here, and it goes back to the same theme when you talk about bus connects or the Ring Road or any infrastructure issue. It's the issue around planning and delay. Delay is the greatest cost we face. That is the cost that's costing us in every project. And that's why, and I mention it over and over again, but in terms of critical infrastructure, if these key items are identified as critical pieces of infrastructure, they can be delivered, they can be fast-tracked, and we have to be serious about that.
We not just need to fast-track all big projects.
Well, that's the idea of the bill, and that's the idea that when it's brought into legislation, that when we identify key pieces of infrastructure, be it bus connects in the future, or the ring road of the future, or the port of the future, or the hospital of the future, that we deliver that. Because
why
we
not just
have to.
fast track everything?
Well, is that not the idea of the bill?
Okay.
That's exactly what I'm looking to.
We'll leave there. We're going to transition now to some questions from the audience for our candidates. In this round, I'm going to ask you to put your hand up if you want to answer said question from the audience. I can't guarantee you'll be able to answer every question, so do pick and choose candidates, and we will make sure we're keeping a track of time for this as well. So our first question, we want to go to David Flanagan. David, when the mic comes to you, can you please ask your question of the candidates?
Thank you, John. So my name is David Flanagan. I'm from Claren Bridge. So Mark, my question was directed to Mark Lohan of Sinn Féin, but feel free to answer it. Mark, so you focused your campaign there in your opening statement on the cost of living and like what supports households or what crises households are facing, like rising energy costs, rising housing costs, groceries, all the rest of it. One thing that I was thinking about today was the terrible wet and cold weather that's out there. I'm thinking about my neighbours who are elderly neighbours and relations that rely on home heat and oil. What supports do you propose if you were elected to prioritise, and do you have anything that you would like to do on home heat and oil as well?
So just for clarity for all the candidates, should you want to answer this, what would you do to reduce the cost of home heating oil is the question. So if you want to answer that one, put your hands up there, we'll see if we can get to you. So Mark first.
Absolutely, John, and David, thank you for the question. Sinn Féin want to put pressure on this government to bring in an emergency budget, just like we put pressure on them to cut the fuel a few months back, and they were embarrassed into doing it. I believe the election of a Sinn Féin TD will bring in that emergency budget that would cut home heating oil by up to €190 for a fill. That's cutting on the carbon tax that's on it currently.
Is that not a bit reckless though, in terms of we need to have a rainy day reserve should the war in Iran, should other conflicts break out? Do you not accept that?
It's raining right now, John, and certainly that people are cut to the pin of their collar. They need the supports, and these cost of living package can be brought in. There's 9 billion sitting in surplus. We're talking about spending a fraction of that to do just that, and also to cut the USC by €500.
You might be long draining a 9 billion budget though if you're going to a mini budget every few weeks.
But the emergency budget is for now, when people need it, when they're cut to the pin of their collar. The people I'm meeting on the doors cannot turn on their heat, and there's people here talking out of both sides of their mouth.
That's enough. I want to go over to Sean Klein if Fine Gael see his hand up as well. Sean.
Yeah, look, the government has provided €750 million package of support. We've seen reductions in fuel. There is no excise on home heating oil or kerosene. We've postponed the increases on the carbon tax and the Nora levy. But
the European Union has given government latitude to act on things like the home heating oil in terms of taxes.
And absolutely. And
when are you going to do that?
We have the firepower, we have the reserves for the autumn and winter period when home heating oil use will be ramped up. I believe there needs to be a package of that place.
So you're going to wait till the budget. You don't feel like people are feeling the pinch of the ground currently.
We have the reserves to act when the demand is greatest, which is in the autumn and winter period, and we need a serious input there, whether it be a carbon rebate or be energy credits for those.
What about an elderly person in Connemara who can't heat their home or fill their tank this morning? What about them?
I think it's important to realise that first of all that the conflict has caused this, and we've responded with a package, and we have the reserves to respond more so in the autumn and winter when demand is at its greatest.
All right, the same question to Helen Ogbu, Labour.
Thank you so much, and thanks for that question. I was in Speedo a couple of weeks ago, and I met a woman.
If you don't mind, Helen, solutions. What solutions?
Well, what people are asking for is for the alternative budget, which the Labour Party actually introduced last week to be implemented. People cannot wait. People cannot afford the cost of living. We're looking at the €400. Let us bring back the €400 energy credit, which we had during COVID. And
across the board?
It's
not targeted.
It will be targeted, but then
how do you target it though?
We have a fully costed alternative budget online, and I would say people should go to our website and see it.
How do you target it though?
Well, we're going to target it based on their income.
So what, means test through where? To what mechanism?
Well, the fully costed budget is online.
Well, I'm asking what mechanism you're using for that mean test and getting the money out to people in a targeted way.
The way it was targeted during COVID, that's what will be done.
Okay, whichever way that is. Okay, I want to give someone else a chance. Niall Murphy, go on, answer that one. Solutions in terms of home heating oil.
Well, in the short term, you don't want to cut the tax because that benefits the rich as well as the poor. You want it to be targeted, and the Green Party would target it with a €200 for any household earning less than 85k. and a further €200 for any households in receipt of the fuel allowance. So that's €400 for the most need.
Can that be done quickly, can it?
That can be done very quickly because all of those means testing is already there for other measures that happened before, like the fuel allowance. But the second piece is, the most important thing is we have a longer term solution for people to use less home heating oil, and that's based on retrofits. And the retrofits are paid by the very tax that some of the other candidates here are saying we should cut.
But even with those grants, it's still too expensive for a lot of people in Galway to get that.
It's too expensive, and that's why you have targeted measures rather than tax cuts, because the tax cuts screw up our ability to fix it long term, and the long term fix has to be retrofits because we need to use less oil. We can't just bring the price down by cutting tax. That doesn't work in the long term.
Okay, I want to go to you on this one as well, Mike Cupboard Independent.
Yeah, you asked for solutions, John. It's very simple. You have to bring in an energy credit. And
across the board target?
Yes, because if it's targeted, it'll go on for months on end, it'll be bogged down in red tape, and people who are sitting at home tonight cold cannot be waiting. And it despairs me to hear
Will that not inflation across the board, though, if you don't
John,
target?
look, people are cold now. We're all meeting people on the doors. People are cold now, and people are not putting on the heating oil in the house. Again, regarding the tax cut, the Spanish did it straight away. We seem to have this philosophy in this country. Let's wait to be the best boys in Europe. People are cold now at home.
So you're happy for millionaires to get said tax credit?
I want.
Is that not a waste of government money?
I want a tax credit done straight away. If you go down the road, in a perfect world, yes, you would go down the road.
Niall Murphy saying you can do it quite quickly.
Look, I don't pay money to the Green Party. You cannot go down the road, John.
You'll work with everyone, but you'll dismiss the Green Party with a flippant comment like
the
that.
The very party who put the struggle on people around the tax credits and the carbon tax. Stop. John, it's very simple. If you go down the road of targeting people, it'll take months on end. The people are cold now at home. We're waiting and waiting. The European Union have said we can cut the tax on kerosene. What are we waiting for? The Spanish did not wait. Why are we waiting?
Okay, I want to go to Killian Kane Fianna Fáil on the solutions, Killian, in terms of home heating oil.
Yeah, well, I believe that there needs to be a targeted credit with higher thresholds, as I outlined about a week ago, but I find it interesting to see that. And it
can you do that quickly, can you?
You can, the same as we've done with other credits, and I think it needs to be targeted as quick as any other credit that has been done. I think this idea
do you want to wait for the
budget?
budget?
First of all, this idea that you need to have an emergency budget at every time you decide to up your spend is absolutely ridiculous. We've seen what happened in Britain with Liz Truss when she had an emergency budget. It totally upset the economy. There is a way of
tough if you can't fill your tank now.
No, but there's ways of increasing your spend by doing that as a government. I think when you look at this ragtag group as we're seeing here now at the moment, on different sides, when it comes to having different ideas, you do need cohesion and you need a degree of governments or larger parties who want to deliver through stability.
Ragtag group, but government are government with independence now.
Look at this, for example, when you look at this here now with the likes of, we have about 7 different candidates here all looking for a transfer pact, and they're all going on different agendas every time they go.
Okay, I want to move on now to our next question, which is going to be fielded by Sinead Brady. So can we get the mic over to Sinead, please? And Sinead, can you ask your question to the candidates?
Thanks, John. Sinead Brady from Galway. I just want to know what kind of future can you offer young people that the other candidates can't?
So for this one, I want to go to Tom Welby, Independent.
I think what we need to offer a solution to young people, primarily people that are looking for housing, we need to increase the amount of affordable housing that we're doing in the county. Currently, Galway County Council are paying €500,000 for a house in Barna for one family. What I'm saying we should be doing is affordable housing subsidies for 100,000 per family, where we have people that are working. They come up then with the rest of the money. They're saying there's record money being put into housing. There is.
The rest of the money, how much more rest of the money will that have to be? What happens is, John, in relation to them, if you have affordable housing, the people have to come up with the rest of the money. So you get 5 affordable houses for one social housing. Our balance in relation to social housing versus affordable housing in Galway, in the country, is completely out of sync. And it's been driven by the department. The department officials think that they're saving taxpayers' money, but they're not. We need to provide people with hope in relation to get their own house. And that's one way we should do it. Time is up there. Neil Barrage, you want to take on this one? What future can you give the people of Galway West, the young people of Galway West, that other candidates can't?
Yeah, maybe. If we offer them emancipation from the neoliberalism as well, and I know that's a bit of a strange word to use.
You better explain that to people who haven't studied politics.
Well, that's why we're politicians up here. Somebody has to read these books, and somebody has to understand about the capitalism and the neoliberalism as it has unfolded in Ireland and where we have got to where we are now, even if you are a capitalist.
So laissez-faire economics, what's the solution to that, Neil, will you tell me?
I would imagine that people-planned economics is probably the better option if you're a human-orientated person.
So what does that look like in practice? What legislation would you bring forward?
Well, again, back to the Local Powers Act being restored to the local powers.
So decentralisation, that's the solution.
Well, I'm not saying decentralisation alone, but to restore some of the powers so that we can give these young people something to get involved with. An organisation that listens to them and takes them in without having to always go to TDs and waste the TDs' time when they should be reading heavy books and getting legislation done.
All right, I want to ask the same question to Dinman Ruck, People for Profit. What future can you offer young people the other candidates can't?
Yeah, so, it's talking about what I did the intro with like young people can't afford the housing market. And this is the problem, kind of talking about neoliberalism, is the privatization of our housing and privatization of our energy sector.
A lot of the other left-wing candidates are offering the same platform there. How are you different?
I mean, I don't know if the other candidates are offering a full decommodification of housing, and that's what I'm calling for. We need to, we need less landlords, we need more homeowners, we need, secure tenancies for tenants. So I'm asking for,
Would that be legal? Do people not have property rights? Is that not a bone of contention, particularly in rural Ireland?
I think people deserve housing more than, maybe landlords need profit on the exploitation of tenants.
So landlords, forget about the deeds to your house, they're going.
Well, make it a bad investment. I care about housing and a future for young people, and I want to see young people be able to afford rent if they want to rent, and I want them to have their own house if they want to have a family house.
John O'Leary, what can you offer?
I've set up a business called Woo.ie, W-O-O-W.
You've said that many times.
No, it's actually looking for young people to work on it, right? So if people go in and see...
You're giving them jobs, is it?
Yes.
Is that not political bribery?
Explain. You're cutting into me without getting a chance to explain, right?
That's the format of the debate you'd agree to.
Woo stands for Watching Over World. It's got 7 subtitles, all with the same initials. One of them is watching over workers. One of them is watching over.
I need to know.
Sorry, can I finish?
Do you want to agree to the terms of this debate? What legislative solutions do you have? I don't want to know about your website.
Right? There's 36,000 NGOs in this country. There's billions being wasted.
What are you going to do about it?
On my website, I've shown how to identify waste and young people working that project.
So you don't want to explain yourself, or to refer to your website?
Commission for finding the waste. Commission for finding the waste.
Okay, I want to move on now to another question we have in from Adrian O'Sullivan. So Adrian, if you want to ask your question to the candidates, please.
Hi, I'm Adrian O'Sullivan, I'm from Salt Hill. I've worked in Parkmore before. It's taken anywhere from 35 minutes to an hour and a half to get to Parkmore from Salt Hill. How do the candidates feel or think about the N6 outer bypass, and whether it goes ahead or not, what alternatives would each candidate propose to alleviate current traffic issues at peak times?
Let's get to these very quickly. Meet Nick Innick of the Social Democrats.
If you're going from Salt Hill to Parkmore, even if they build the N6, it means you have to go all the way out to get onto that N6, which will still leave you stuck in traffic. For me, it is bus connects. They are shovel ready. They are past planning. All we are waiting for is the money to implement them. So when it comes to being able to get all those people who are working in Parkmore, they're on time as well, because reliability...
You don't really support the N6, though, do you, as Social Democrats?
Well, it's the thing of, we've got the planning decision, and I think people in Galway are sick of waiting and waiting to see what will happen. So for us, it is about getting on with all the things that can happen now that that decision has been made.
Michael Ryan, same question to you. Do you support the N6? What other policies?
The N6, well, I wouldn't have any information on that. So.
The ring road?
The ring road, sorry. Would I support it? Yes, I would support it. But I think it's going to be a long time, I suppose, to be developed. And it will probably be dead and buried by the time that's developed.
So what are the solutions?
What are the solutions? Well, like I said, light rail would be a solution. Go with the Clifton commuter rail. That's one of the solutions.
Okay, I want to go to Orla Nugent of Ainfield. Same question for you.
Yes, I do, and also I think Park and Ride from Parkmore to Salt Hill or any of the other areas would be very helpful.
And do you support?
Yes,
if it doesn't go ahead, though, what other alternatives could we do?
Well, looking into the Glewis, but also regular buses, more capacity, and supporting bus connects.
Sheila
Park and
Garden,
Ride.
Independent. Same question to you.
We have a small medieval city that can't take any more traffic. We need to create public transportation solutions that are more attractive than sitting in your cars, and that'll get people out of cars. Glewis, bus corridors, active travel. Let the ring road come or go if it will. That's out of our control now. It's been proposed and it's going forward. But we need to work on solutions to help people moving in the city and then people moving across the city.
They're not already there, all them
They haven't been enacted, John. We've, the park and ride that's been proposed for Kappa is not connecting to a bus corridor. People are expected to drive in from Connemara and park up to sit in more traffic in a bus. That's not going to work. It has to be more attractive than sitting in your car. It has to be fast, efficient, affordable, free. I'd be in favour of free public transport to get people out of their cars in a comfortable way.
I want to go to Noel Thomas, Independent Ireland. Same question to you, Independent Ireland. Noel,
yeah, John, what we need is real solutions here. We've constantly seen, as I said, like ideas there like the park and ride in Kappa. I mean, you don't put those things in place until you've actually got proper bus lanes in place first to allow somebody to be able to avail of the park and ride system and use it to its full capacity. But I mean, that's the long and short of it. At the end of the day, we've got to make some big decisions in Galway City in relation to ensuring that we put proper public transport corridors in place.
Okay, and AJ Cahill of the Irish People, same one for you.
I support the ring road, as mentioned, time shifting, the opening the schools. In addition to that, you simply just paint the double yellow lines red and introduce red routes, the same as they did in London 30 years ago.
Okay. AJ Cahill of the Irish People, thank you for that. We were hoping to have 30 seconds of an outro for our candidates. We simply do not have time to do that tonight, but you can find all the information on their social channels as well. But I do want to say we are almost out of time here tonight at Galway Bay FM's Galway West by-election debate, live from the Galmont Hotel. Over the past 2 hours, we've heard the debate, disagreement, policy proposals and sharp exchanges on the major issues facing Galway West and the country as well. But ultimately, the decision now belongs to you, the voters. This by-election will determine who the people of Galway West send to Dáil Éireann, and tonight has been an opportunity for voters to hear directly from the candidates seeking that support as well. So we had a lot of candidates on us tonight. Let's remind you of the candidates we've had for you tonight as well. They are namely John O'Leary, Michael Ryan, Killian Kane, Thomas Welby, Orla Nugent, Denman Rook, Niall Murphy, Mike Cupboard, Neil Barrade, Mark Lohan, AJ Cahill, Sheila Garrity, Sean Kine, Mija Nick Inleg, Noel Thomas and Helen Ogbu. Not in attendance for tonight's debate was Patrick Feeney, Independent. But make sure you exercise your vote on this coming Friday, the 22nd of May, and we wish all the candidates the very best of luck. It was a pleasure having them as part of our election debate, because that's what democracy is all about, hearing the views of your candidates.